Now for a long, long time. Dean Radin earned a BSW magna cum laude in engineering from the University of Massachusetts. He also has an MS in electrical engineering and a PhD in psychology, both from the University of Illinois. For 10 years, he conducted research on advanced telecommunication systems at AT&T, Bell Labs, and GTE Labs. Then, for the majority of the last 20 years, he has investigated psychic phenomena in academic and industrial positions. Dean served as a member of a classified research project investigating psychic phenomena for the U.S. government at SRI International and headed PSI research programs in Silicon Valley for 2 scientific and industrial think tanks. He's been a senior scientist at the Institute of Noetic Sciences since 2001 and is also adjunct faculty at Sonoma State University in California. We're going to be talking about advancements in PSI research, including ESP and mass consciousness studies. This is the single most fascinating topic, in my opinion, that I've ever discussed on the air. In a moment, Dean Radin. Well, it's been quite a while. Dean Radin, welcome back to Coast AM, my friend.
Thanks very much, Art. Great to be on the show again.
Yeah, gosh, it's good to have you. It is as I said, and I mean this, it's the single most interesting topic that I've ever discussed on this program, period. So your book, The Conscious Universe, I guess now is old. It was published back in 97, and it's been in print ever since. And now, finally, just now, this long, it's going into paperback. Is that right?
Yeah, finally at the end of this month, it's going into paperback.
Wow. Well, all right. So a lot of authors I have on have just written a book, and they want to come on and plug their book. But now it's been around for 12 years. So, the response, what is it like? How would you describe the response to your book?
Well, you're right. I am kind of plugging it, but I'm plugging the paperback.
That's fine.
The last 12 years have been, I think, quite interesting. Personally, I was at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas at the time when it came out, and then shortly afterwards I went to Silicon Valley for 3 years and had the great opportunity of working for a while at a place called Interval Research, which was funded by the Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen. And so this was an industrial lab with lots of great resources and wonderful colleagues. And my job was to look into ESP, not so much because we thought we'd be able to turn it into a product, but as often happens that in any kind of industrial lab, it's useful to have somebody around to help you think outside the box. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing quite like thinking outside the box when the box you're talking about is the nature of space and time.
Yes.
So,
12 years, again, it's a long time. And in 12 years, you would think that the book would make a pretty big dent in terms of causing your colleagues, other scientists, to look into all of this. But it necessarily has not occurred that way, has it?
I would say that there is a change in the sense of how people talk about this in a private way. But
yes.
There isn't a huge change yet in how it's talked about publicly, at least within mainstream science.
Why not?
Well, you actually gave a hint early on when you mentioned that you have done a couple of large-scale mass consciousness experiments, and it frightened you. Well, it frightens everyone. There's something about the sense that if it is really true that our intentions are able to go out and push the world around a little bit, uh-huh. and you start thinking about the consequences of that, it is frightening.
Uh-huh. That's exactly the right word, frightening, and that's what it did. It scared me.
Yep, and it tends to scare a lot of people. And even if we're only talking about something like telepathy or remote viewing, that's also frightening for a lot of people because we like to walk around imagining that we have private thoughts and that things that we would like to keep secret really are secret, but in fact that's actually not true. And so it really does, it plays mind games on you, and and challenging some very basic assumptions that we have in terms of how we go about our daily lives. And so that's one reason why the public discussion is not yet mainstream yet.
Do you have any clues, Dean, that behind the scenes, and I'm not just talking now about the work you've done, but perhaps behind the scenes somewhere else, deep in government or who knows where, there are projects underway that you may just have a hint about?
Well, I have more than a hint.
Yes.
When it comes to government, there are definitely people who are interested in these phenomena, as they always have been. And the primary concern is that if these things are real, and it certainly looks like they are, then we should be paying attention because it might be a threat to national security. And so there's always going to be some people whose job is to pay attention to these kinds of phenomena, and they're still interested. In the academic world, I know that there are a number of groups in prominent universities that are actually engaged in research because I consult with them, but they're all sworn to secrecy. I mean, it's practically like military secrecy, that you really cannot talk about who they are or what they're doing, because they recognize that the nature of the taboo is pretty strong, and they simply don't want to lose credibility among their colleagues.
Well, we know there was a secret project going on, funded, I suppose, by the CIA, if I recall correctly. Mm-hmm. Is there something like that? Do you suspect, I guess it'd be an easier way to ask you, that there's something like that going on, funded by the CIA or somebody, or NSA, or somebody like them, right now? I can't imagine there wouldn't be, actually.
I don't know the answer. If I did, obviously I couldn't say.
Yes.
I suspect that there are people who are interested in tracking what's going on, but if I had to guess, I would guess that there's not a formal program. That is probably not true in other countries. It's almost certainly the case that in Russia today, for example, that there's not just a program, but it's a fairly sizable program. I suspect the same is true in China. So
I would agree with you. China and Russia. Do you have any inside information? How do you ask something like this in a public forum? But I have to ask anyway. Do you have any inside information with regard to either one of those programs or others that may exist?
Are you talking about other governments?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. But no, I can't talk about it.
I had to ask. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and by the way, it's not really that it's not classified or anything. That it doesn't take long to simply go searching on the web, and you can find certainly historical information suggesting that the major governments around the world have always been interested in these things. The only difference between the U.S. and other governments right now is that the other governments are a little bit easier to find that they're still active.
We've got 11 years under our belt now with the GCP, the Global Consciousness Project. What's the latest? Is there a latest to talk about? I mean, it's been a while since we've been on the air.
Mm-hmm. I would say that the latest is a paper which actually was published at the end of last year. The first author is Peter Bancel. He's a physicist living in Paris who initially was extremely skeptical about the whole idea of this, because after all, we're talking about mind-matter interaction at the level of the whole globe.
Sure.
But it's an open project. All the data is downloadable. It's as open as a project can possibly be. And he was intrigued, so he started looking into it. And the more he looked into it, the more intrigued he became. So he's now one of the principal analysts in the project. And he and Roger Nelson, the head of the program, wrote a paper and published it, which is available on the Global Consciousness Project website. And he goes, this is a highly technical paper, so while everybody can get it, not everyone will understand it. The upshot of it is that the question all along has been, what's actually happening to these random number generators? You have a big event that happens out there that attracts a lot of minds. Is it forcing the generator to behave in a strange way, or is it forcing all of the generators